welcome back to my walkthrough of Great Western Trail. The blue player should be able to reach Kansas City pretty soon, whereas the other players are, let's say, a little bit farther away from Kansas City, especially the yellow player down there who really doesn't seem to be in a hurry to get there. But of course, you can really do quite a lot on your trail to Kansas City. But as usual, yellow will start the round, even though there aren't really rounds in this game, but he will be next anyway, and I think he will go here to the market. First thing that he can do, or he will do in this case, again keep in mind you can do those actions in any order, he's going to discard one of his Black Angus cows, and therefore he's allowed to get $2, and he really needs those extra $2 in order to buy some cattle from the cattle market. So let's move down to the board and check out which kind of cattle is currently available. This is done as part of setup, and depending on the amount of play you would draw a number of cattle cards. In a 3-player game that's 10 cards. And yeah, this is basically the offer that's available. Next thing that you have to check out is what can you buy, and this is again depending on the amount of cowboys you currently have on your player board, and all the players start the game with exactly one cowboy, so you can do at least something at the cattle market here. And with one cowboy point, let's put it that way, you can buy any colored level 3 cow for $6. You could also add 2 new cards to the offering, but of course then he would be out of cowboy points. Remember, he only has one cowboy, though that's one cowboy point. And last but not least, he would also be able to get a level 4 cow, so a West Highland cow for $12, which is really quite a lot. Right now he's down to only $6, so I think he will spend those $6 to go for a level 3 cow. Those are all level 3 cows here. And I think let's check out the victory points that those cows provide at the end of the game. So that's 1, 2, and 3 in this case. That's pretty obvious. I think he will go for this one. Later on, he might go for another cow, because keep in mind you want to have different colored sets of cows, ideally. So in this case, it's easy. It's his first cow he's getting, so he pays $6, and then he gets this cow into his herd deck, goes to his discard pile, so he cannot use it right away. If he would have more cowboy points, then he would be able to do more action, but that's pretty much it. The market doesn't get repopulated right away, therefore you either have to spend 1 cowboy point to bring 2 more cows to the cattle market here, or you have to wait until this job market token makes it over this yellow arrow, which also means that you would fill up the market until the starting number of cattle cards that are available, so up to 10 in a 3-player game. Okay, let's draw up to 4 cards, and this is a Guernsey cow, and I got some confirmation that I seem to pronounce it right. I was really surprised to hear that, and really thanks for confirming that. So this seems to be a Guernsey cow, and for him that's pretty okay, because right now he has at least 2 different kind of cows in his herd deck, so it might be worthwhile to make it to Kansas City anytime soon, because this would give him $6. Then it's red, and red will totally move here. He will discard 2 of his Jersey cows, so they have to be the same cows, and this would give him $4. And I think he's also not that interested in getting one of those hazard tiles, so that's pretty much the end of his turn already. Let's draw up 2 more cards. That's cool. Okay, that's not too bad either for him. And then it's the blue player. Blue could make it easily to Kansas City, but I think he will not go there yet. First of all, he will move 1 space to this space. Again, he has an option for this action here, so he could gain 1 temporary certificate, or he would be allowed to grab 1 of those objective cards. And I think this is what he will do. And now you can either take 1 of those face-up objective cards that are currently available, or you can get the top card from the top of the deck. In this case, I think he wants to go for this objective card here. A new objective card will be revealed right away. Wow, that's an awesome ability. But let's have a closer look at those objective cards. Those are the non-starting objective cards, so they usually, I think all of them come with a potential penalty point. The thing about those cards is they go just to your discard pile like any other cards you acquire throughout the game, so you cannot use it right away. When you have it on your hand, you can then choose to play it. Then it goes in front of you. As long as this card is in your deck and you have not used, you don't have to fulfill the, let's say, special requirements here. So by the end of the game, you could still decide if you want to use it or not. If you play it though, you get this little bonus that's printed on the top left of the card right away. In this case, you could move your engine 3 spaces ahead. But as soon as you have this card in front of you, you have to fulfill it. If you're not able to fulfill it, in this case, you would score those 3 penalty points. And moving your engine can be pretty powerful, so I think that's definitely a cool card for him. So let's just grab this card, put it to his normal discard pile. He will also go for the second action here, move your engine by the number of engineers you currently have. We already know that the blue player only has the starting engineer, so he's allowed to move his engine 1 space ahead. Then it's yellow again, and I think yellow also wants to go to this location here. At this location, he will discard his 2 black Angus cards here, and therefore he's allowed to grab $4, which isn't that bad. And because that's the only money he has, he will not be able to go for a hazard tile here, even though his starting objective card would require 1 hazard tile, but he still has plenty of time to get 1 or more of those hazard tiles throughout the game. Let's quickly draw up. So that's another Jersey cow, another Guernsey cow. So overall his value, or the value of his herd, has decreased somewhat by $1, but he just got 4 in return, so I think overall that's okay for him. Then it's the red player, and I think he totally wants to go to his own red building there. So that's 1 space here, and now he has 3 actions to go for. And again, he can go for them in any order. And I think the first thing that he will do, that's pretty easy one, he will discard 2 similar cards for $3. That's already a pretty cool start. Those go right to his discard pile. Next, I think he wants to go for this action, so therefore he has to get rid or discard 1 Jersey cow, so that's a little 1. This gives him $2 for once, so +1, and he's also allowed to get 1 temporary certificate, which he can then later use in order to make his herd more valuable. And last but not least, he will go for this action, which basically says move your cattleman 1 space ahead and do the action of the new space accordingly. Again, he would be allowed to move his engine 1 space. He also starts the game with only 1 engineer. So let's go for it. And with his second action, he will go for one of those auxiliary actions, and I think in this case he will just go for an additional $1. So overall that was really a great turn for him. He was able to get rid of some of the cows, he got a lot of cash, and yeah, could do a lot of actions. And last but not least, he has to draw 1, 2, 3 cards. Okay, this was overall not a very good draw, but at least he would be able to get at least $4 out of this herd. And now it's the blue player again, and the only option that he can take now is to move right into Kansas City, because there aren't any more spaces along the trail. So let's move him here, and now you follow the subphases through Kansas City. Accordingly, you start on space number 1, and there you take either of those hazard tiles and place it accordingly on the board. And I think, or he pretty much thinks, that it's too easy for the red player to come to his red building up in the hill, so he will go for this rock fall hazard here, and he will place it here on the lowest number of this rock fall track here. This is now also a space, so you can no longer just pass it, and the player who is passing this also has to pay $2, but those $2 go right into the bank. And then it's space 2, and here he chooses one of the 2 workers to put him into the worker market, and I think there aren't any engineers out there, so he will go for this engineer. This will push down the worker token, or the worker market token, 1 space ahead, and yeah, that's pretty much the way how this game will end. and then he will populate the free spot with a worker he just chose. The same has to be done with a third space. Again, we only have the choice between an engineer and a worker, and I think in this case he will go for I think it's a worker, it's a craftsman, and this craftsman goes right into the new row. And keep in mind, you are only allowed to hire workforce that are above this job market token. Next, it's about income here on space 4. Now you reveal your hand of cards to all the players, so let's do that. And as I mentioned several times already, now it's really important to show different types of cattle. Unfortunately, only has 2 different types of cattle on his hand. So these are the only values that he can bring to the cattle market here. In this case, he would gain only $3, which is really nothing. In theory, he could now spend those temporary certificates to add 1 or up to $3 to this value, but unfortunately he's down to 0, so he doesn't get any bonus here. So in this case, it's just those $3. We will not put those $3 right into his pocket, because the next thing that we have to do is to deliver those cattle, or this cattle. And so we move on to space number 5, and we have to remember we have gotten $3 out of this, and this also means that we can now deliver those cows to a city that has the same value of the cows he just sold pretty much. So he had 3, so we can only bring those cows to Topeka. Wichita already would have required him to have at least a herd of 4, and this goes up all the way up to 18. So you can imagine that your herd will definitely change throughout the game. One additional thing to mention is that most of the cities can only take 1 of your tokens. So in this case, you can only send your cattle once to Wichita throughout the entire game. An exception to this rule is Kansas City and San Francisco. All the way to the right there, you can really deliver any number of cows, but keep in mind that each cow you deliver, or each delivery you do to Kansas City, gives you $6, which is great, but you also lose 6 victory points by the end of the game, and this can be really quite a lot. In this case, I think it's pretty simple. Blue wants to deliver 1 cow here to Topeka, and you also notice this little arrow. If you manage to have, let's say, a delivery to Topeka and Wichita anytime throughout the game. So let's just imagine blue has 1 disc here and 1 disc here. At that point in time, this green arrow would trigger. So for once, he would lose 3 victory points by the end of the game, but he would also be allowed to get 1 of those objective cards, which could be pretty powerful. But let's send those cows now to Topeka, and this means that we can now unlock 1 of those special abilities. Now it's important to check which color those special actions have. 1 of them has those white colors or corners, and 1 of those has those black corners. It's important to keep in mind that a disc from a white space can go to any colored city on the board, but a disc with a black corner here can only be delivered to a city with black corners as well. In this case, we delivered to Topeka, which is apparently a white cornered city, so we can only use a disc from a white cornered space here. So this is unfortunately out of scope, but we can go for all of those, or we could go for an additional capacity of those certificate markers, but I think right now that's not really important. I think I want to unlock 1 of those double actions up there, and I think I will go for this one, because this can really help you to optimize your deck, especially when you are coming closer to Kansas City during the next round or so. So let's just take this disc and place it onto Topeka. So this shows that blue has delivered cattle to Topeka, so he will not be able to send any more cows to that city throughout the entire game. That was the delivery, so we move to the last space here. This would for once bring this cattleman back to the starting position here. Then we refill this space up there. So first of all, we take 1 of those tokens with a 1 on the back side, so they all have these little numbers on their back side. So let's see what we get. Okay, that's flood hazard. Then we take one with a level 2. So let's see what we get. Maybe a cowboy. No, unfortunately not a cowboy. And then we get one with a level 3. And in level 3 there is basically both. So there can be hazards and new workforce in this one. So let's see what we get. And oh, it's another engineer. So this is really unfortunate for the other players that there aren't any cowboys coming up. So this was really a good decision for the blue player to go for the one and only cowboy. Awesome. And last but not least, we would discard all the cards that blue still had. So they will get discarded right away. And then he would start the next round with 4 new cards. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's see what we get. Okay, that's a pretty mixed herd. So this would be awesome to move into Kansas City, but unfortunately he wasn't that lucky during the last round. Then it's back to yellow. And yellow wants to move his engine because he will deliver some more cows than the blue player, that's for sure. So I think he will also move here, and he will of course do this action here first. And as he happens to have 2 engineers, he's now allowed to move his engine twice. And guess what? Occupied spaces do not count. So the first space he would take would be 3, so that's 1. And with the second movement he will move into space number 4. So he passed this first red cross there, which reduces the amount of dollars he has to pay in order to deliver your cattle to a farther away city. That's already a great start. He's still allowed to do 1 auxiliary action, and I think he will go for this one. So he would be allowed to draw a card. Ah, that's a pity. This was the wrong card for him, and then he has to discard again down to his hand limit. And I think, yeah, let's just discard this cow again. Oh, let's go. Doesn't really matter. He will just discard this card again. He was really hoping for something different, but to be honest, I didn't pay that much attention if all the Black Angus cows were already out, to be honest. But overall, that wasn't that bad for him. He doesn't draw up because he is already at his hand limit. Then it's the red player, and I think also red wants to stop here. First of all, he will move his engine 1 space ahead because he only has 1 engineer, but this means he will move right into space number 3, and from this action space he will go for the certificate 1, so he's allowed to move his cube 1 space further down. Then it's the blue player, and I think blue really wants to buy. He has to buy because he needs some money. This was maybe a mistake, maybe not. He was able to get a cowboy. That was maybe pretty important for him as well. So anyway, let's move him here. There he would be allowed to discard his Dutch belt cow, which he will do. Therefore, he's allowed to grab $2. And for sure, he will build. Right now, he only has 1 craftsman, so he goes for this level 1 building, so pretty much the same that the yellow player was using, and I think he will place it right up there for now. So this would give him 2 extra bucks if another player would land on it or pass over it. Right now maybe no one would consider doing this, but who knows. But of course, when he enters his turn on this space, he would be given $2 for each of his buildings that is on a forest, and of course this building counts to be on a forest. Let's draw up to his hand limit. Another Guernsey cow. Really happy that I can pronounce it right now. And then it's the yellow player, and I think yellow will move down there as well. I think he will also go for this certificate action. So let's move this one down, and then he will also move his engine up to 2 spaces away. That's really important distinction because he wants to end the movement of his engine here at this turnout space. So he will only move 1 space. Good thing is he also passed this red cross here, so this is good for him. And now he can basically build a train station, so he can take that over. Unfortunately, he's out of craftsman, but he will go there anyway. So he's now allowed to take 1 of his discs on a white background, and what will he go for? I think cash is always nice, so I think he will go for this one here, and in order to build a station here you has to pay $2, so that's pretty much printed here next to the space, but it gives you 1 victory points by the end of the game, which isn't that bad overall. If the yellow player would have hired one craftsman, he could remove this craftsman from his player board and exchange him with a station master tile here. So then we would see a craftsman sitting here, he would be considered as station master, and this one is a permanent ability in this case, so he would gain 1 permanent certificate. So for each delivery you do, you always get 1 extra buck, which is quite a lot, and you also have a lower half which you can then trade in later on at the end of the game to gain some bonus points. In this case, each pair of hazard tiles would also give you 2 extra victory points. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a craftsman, but he also prohibited that another player would go here, for example, and exchange it, because right now this space is occupied, so you can only just move over it. Then it's the red player, and I think red has to move to Kansas City first things first. So grab one of those, and I think he will go for a teepee, which he has to place on the lowest space available right now. That's this one. Let's move over to space number 2. I think here we will go for another engineer, which he will move here, and then it's space number 3. There is also only an engineer waiting, so let's grab one and move him onto this space, which also means the worker market token moves 1 space again. And also keep in mind that this row of workers is also more expensive than the other one above it. Then it's for the income, so let's reveal his hand of cards. And unfortunately, he also only has 2 different types of cattle, so that's pretty much $4 he would get. But on top of this, he will spend his 2 certificate markers he was able to get to increase his income to $6 instead of only 4, which is definitely not so bad. And now we come to the delivery phase. Keep in mind, he made an income of $6, so he can deliver his cattle to a city worth of 6. In this case, I think we will deliver our cattle here to Colorado Springs. Again, this is a white corner city, so in this case I think he will go for an additional certificate spot here, so he can now gain up to 4 temporary certificates, which is quite a lot. So let's place his disc onto Colorado Springs. Now we have to see how expensive that delivery is, and now it's important where your engine is. His engine is here, Colorado Springs is here. Let's see how many of those red crosses he has to pass over. In this case, that's 1, 2, and 3. So he has to pay $3 for this delivery. And now you see how important it can be to move your engine ahead. So those just go back to the bank, but overall that wasn't a bad turn. Let's move the cattleman back to the starting position. Let's fill up those spaces here, and here we have another drought. Then space 2. Again another engineer. That's really unfortunate. And from 3, another craftsman. Again, no cowboy showed up. That's really pity for the other players, but nevertheless, let's discard those cards, and then it's pretty much over to the blue player. But now I figured that red only had 3 more cards in his herd deck, so like any other deck building game, now it would be time to reshuffle his discard pile in order to allow him to draw up to his hand limit of 4. So here we are. Let's see what he got. Okay, that's not really a great hurt, but he just starts his trail back to Kansas City, so a lot can happen throughout the way. Then it's the blue player, and I think this will be the very last action I will show you. And I think he will now move onto the cattle market here. So 1, 2, 3 spaces up there. Normally you could also go for hiring someone. I really want to show you how different it is to get some cattle with 2 cowboys. In this case, he still has to pay $2 to the yellow player. Then he could discard a Black Angus for 2, but unfortunately he just ran out of Black Angus, and now he would go into the market phase, so he would go for some cattle. Remember, he has 2 cowboys. And with 2 cowboys, you definitely have some more flexibility. For once, you could, for example, draw a new card or 2 new cards for the Cadillac and then go for this action to get a level 3 cow for $6. Or you could go for a level 3 cow, spending both of his cowboys to get it for only $3, which is quite a lot. And additionally, he would now be able to spend his 2 cowboy points to go for a level 5 castle, the Texas Longhorn here, for $12, which is worth 6 victory points at the end of the game. But unfortunately, he doesn't have $12, so maybe he would have gone somewhere else before, but I really wanted to show that to you. So in this case, I think he will just spend $3 to get a level 3 cow, and I think he will also go for one of those blue ones here, providing him 3 victory points by the end of the game. And keep in mind, the yellow player had to pay $6 to get the same cow. So here you can really see how valuable things can get. And if you manage to get a third cowboy, you would get 2 level 3 cards for $5 only. And he would also be able to buy a level 4 cow, so West Highland one, for only $6. So really getting cowboys early in the game can be pretty important. And yeah, next the yellow player would move to Kansas City. He would go for all the sub phases. He would get quite some money, that's for sure. And then the game would move on until this job market token would make it all the way down there, passes over the red arrow, and this would trigger the end of the game. You would tally up your score, and keep in mind you get the points only by the end of the game. And I think the rules speak about that you will make it to Kansas City in a normal game 6 to 7 times or so. So we'll drive your cattle quite often through the Great Western Trail to Kansas City. This is pretty much the scoring, so you get 1 point for each $5 you have. You get the victory points from your buildings, you get any victory points from the cities you have delivered to, you get some victory points for stations you have built, you get the bonus points for the hazard tiles you have. Any cow you have on your hand provides you some point, then you can score those objective cards. Then I think, yeah, these are the objective cards. Then you get some bonus points for the amount of workers you have been hired throughout the game. So some of the spots show you some victory points and so on. So there's really a hell of a lot of ways to score points in this game. And luckily this game comes also with this nice scoring sheet here. This brings me to the end of my walkthrough of Great Western Trail, which I really think is great. It's just like it is. I cannot really point out how much I like this game, and I really hope you enjoyed my little walkthrough here. Hope it showed you most of the core mechanics. There's still a little bit more every now and then, so there are different objective cards in the game and some of the other buildings that give you additional options how you would plan your cattle drive and whatnot. But I think overall this should provide you a relatively good overview. Hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, and until then, bye bye.